Hey Star Trek fans, Dan Gunther here with another episode review, this time for Season 2, Episode 7, Light and Shadows. In this episode, Michael Burnham returns home to Vulcan to talk with Sarek and Amanda, but mostly Amanda, whom she suspects of knowing more about Spock than she's let on. Her instincts turn out to be correct when she discovers that Amanda is hiding Spock in an area known to block telepathic signals, which is stymieing Sarek's efforts in finding him. Sarek instructs Michael to turn Spock over to Section 31, who is leading the manhunt for him, and there are indications that Section 31 may actually treat him fairly. However, Michelle Yeoh's character of Philippa Georgiou informs Michael that this is not the case and engineers Michael's escape attempt, rescuing Spock in the process. Michael interprets Spock's kind of nonsensical numerical ramblings as actually being the backwards coordinates to planet Talos 4, which longtime Star Trek fans will certainly recognize, and at the end of the episode they set a course there ready for new adventures on the Forbidden Planet. Meanwhile, back on Discovery, which is still holding position near Kaminar, they've detected a temporal anomaly, a time rift as it ends up being called, and Pike and Tyler take a shuttle to launch a probe to investigate it. They are pulled into the anomaly, and the Discovery crew must attempt to rescue them, using Stamets' ability to see past space-time anomalies thanks to his upgraded tardigrade DNA from Season 1. That sentence sounds really strange. All in all, I found this to be a very strong episode of Season 2. I'm really enjoying the new direction they're taking it. There are a lot of plot twists and turns that I was not expecting in this episode and in the season in general, which is really good because I felt as much as I enjoyed Season 1, there were a lot of plot turns that, not necessarily predictable, but because there's so many Star Trek fans all watching and all analyzing, it kind of took away some of the fun when a lot of it got figured out very early on. However, with this season, I have seen so many theories, both serious and not serious, as to who the Red Angel is and what that will eventually turn out to be. I'm sure one of those theories is correct, but at this point, there's no one single theory that is just overridingly obvious over the others. And with the events of this episode factor in, there's a few more possible answers coming in. Are the Red Angels, in fact, just an illusion created by the Talosians, who we, of course, know from the first pilot of the original Star Trek? It was the very first planet visited in Star Trek history, if you count the first pilot, the Cage, by the original USS Enterprise under the command of Pike. Spock, of course, was also on that mission, and I'm assuming we're going to see some strong tie-ins to the Cage and possibly the Menagerie, the follow-up story in the original series with the events of next week's episode. So, I'd heard rumors that they were going to see the Talosians this season, and I thought maybe they'd be referred to or something like that. I kind of didn't put a lot of stock into people saying, oh, that definitely means we're for sure going to see the Talosians, but based on the preview for next week, it looks as though we definitely are. So kudos to the people who reported on that. We get to see some of Sarek's family dynamics here, and I'd say almost a little bit of a return to the Sarek that we know from other Star Trek series. He's got a harder edge here when dealing with Michael and with his feelings towards Spock, which have always been a source of, kind of thoughts that Sarek's a bit of a jerk. And he comes across as that in this episode, and it really felt like the Sarek of old. So kudos to James Frain for his portrayal here. Also some charming flashbacks to young Michael Burnham and Spock. The young actor that plays Spock is really good at, cute little kids. He played a young Barry Allen in The Flash, for example, and his young Spock here is kind of a nice take on the character. We don't see a lot of him, but what we do see, he seems curious and inquisitive and just a little bit emotional, but still trying to cope with Vulcan norms. His delivery of the line "emotions confuse me," I thought that was very Spock-like. And totally what I would imagine Spock as a kid to be like. There are also some revelations about Spock's past when we finally do meet up with the adult Spock, which are certainly interesting, and kind of add a little bit more of a dynamic to how he was treated by his fellow Vulcans as a child. Not only was he picked on for being half human, but we also learned that he acquired a few learning difficulties from his human side as well, which certainly would make it very difficult to cope on Vulcan. Some more interesting development on Philippa Georgiou as well. I like that she's willing to help Michael. Again, I still can't help but feel like there's some ulterior motives there, but it certainly looks like she's got Michael Burnham's best interests at heart. And also a bit of protectiveness there, which was interesting. And her confrontation with Leland, telling him that she knows that he's responsible for the death of Michael Burnham's parents, was an interesting revelation. This kind of feels a little bit soap opera-y, but I'm willing to follow it to see where it goes here. The fact that Leland wasn't shocked by this and didn't protest really says a lot. So there's definitely something there. Something that I assume is going to be followed up on. Yeah, but I'm not totally sure how I feel about it yet, but we'll give this one room to breathe and see where it goes. Discovery's space-time anomaly shenanigans were a lot of fun. Tilly has some great parts in this, of course. She has great rapport with Pike, Saru, and Stamets throughout all of this. And interesting to kind of bring back Stamets' ability to kind of be immune from spatial distortions and space-time anomalies and that sort of thing. I thought was kind of cool. Nice little bit of continuity back to season 1 there. Not sure what's up with the probe. Basically, they sent it into the anomaly. It apparently traveled forward in time 500 years or just existed for 500 years, was upgraded somehow and sent back in time and attacks the shuttle. Now, I don't know that it's a traditional attack necessarily. It looks, I mean, it certainly seemed very hostile and was trying to break into the shuttle and acquire Discovery's database. But was it really being malevolent? I don't know. It could be interpreted different ways. And the fact that they destroy the shuttle to kill it might have repercussions in the next episode, given what we see in the preview trailer. So curious to see where that goes. The probe also, of course, seems to, for lack of a better word, infect Commander Arium with something. There's kind of a flashing light that she reflects back in her eyes, and something seems to maybe have been downloaded into her. Maybe the shuttle's artificial intelligence or something like that. Really interesting stuff that I was not expecting. So some really cool science fiction-y things that, you know, I hope have a really good payoff, because I'm really enjoying the setup here. So next week we get to visit Talos 4 and see the Telosians. Now this is really interesting, and I'll have some more to say on this in the deep dive video, but suffice it to say it might behoove you to rewatch The Cage and or The Menagerie parts 1 and 2 this next week in preparation for the upcoming episode. I did recently rewatch The Cage. I might have to load up The Menagerie sometime this week just to kind of refresh my memory there. It looks like they're going to be tying in to canon in a really big way here, and possibly we'll see the origin of General Order 7, which prescribes the death penalty for anybody going to Talos 4. This punishment for the events of The Cage never really made sense to me, so I always felt there had to be something more there, and perhaps next week we'll see what that is. Also, I do have to say a little bit of rapprochement between Pike and Tyler at the end of this episode was nice to see, with both of them kind of seeing things from the other's perspective. Pike especially kind of conceding that the Red Angel's motives could be malevolent and that it shouldn't be discounted. There might be some negative intent there. We still don't know enough, and Pike kind of was willing to go on faith that everything the Red Angel did was for good, but is willing to concede now that maybe he might have been wrong about that. So what did you all think of episode 7, Light and Shadows? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Like I said last week, I do read every single comment, so I really appreciate it. Keep them coming. Thank you, of course, to the Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. I really do appreciate it. And everyone else, as usual, thanks so much for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing if you felt this video was worth it. And until next week, let's set course 749 Mark 148 direct for Talos 4.